This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 497. Don't force the sale. Allow the sale.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers, and this is the podcast that embraces the effortless action and Taoist style of non-pushy sales. Now, sometimes the sellers, in their zeal to win, push and prod buyers into uncomfortable buying decisions. It's always a good time for a seller to win a sale, but that's not the case for buyers. Sometimes a purchase is part of a broader project that requires planning. Too often sellers forget that their timeline should be the buyer's timeline. In today's episode of the Tao of Sales Babble, we discuss the hazards of forcing a deal and the benefits of giving buyers space to decide on their own. But before we start, make sure and subscribe to the podcast on whatever app that you're listening to, and also follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, and myself on LinkedIn. You can find links in the show notes. And so with no further ado, let's get to it. And now today's chapter. Don't force. Allow. Whoever relies on master selling doesn't try to force decisions or beat down buyers with logic and facts. For every force, there is a counterforce. Even if well-intentioned, it always rebounds upon oneself, placing the sale in peril. The master seller does their job and then stops. They understand that the sale is never completely in their control, and that trying to dominate events goes against the will of the buyer. Because they believe in themselves, they don't try to strong-arm buyers. Content with themselves, they don't need others' approval. Since they accept themselves for who they are, the whole world accepts them. And now today's story. Let the sale breathe. Chris had been working a large deal for quite some time and was finally able to schedule a sales call. That meeting went great. The buyers liked what they saw and believed the solution would be a good fit. Immediately, Chris started closing, despite being told by the buyers they had some other things to put in place. Chris heard what they said, but didn't hear what they said. Every few days, Chris would send a follow-up email, text, or a voicemail to ask, "Are you ready to buy? Are you ready to buy?" Soon the buyers got turned off, and that was the last Chris heard from them. Chris was ghosted. "What happened to that prospect?" Pat asked. "I thought they liked your presentation." It took a while, but eventually Chris shared the failed follow-up strategy. "Oh," Pat responded, "you tried to force them to make a decision, right? You didn't need to do that. We have a great solution that provides great value. You should have faith that the buyers will understand, and in time, they will buy. Next time you're in this situation, let the sale breathe. It takes time for buyers to decide. If it's a good fit, the deal will close, and buyers will appreciate your patience and confidence. Trust in yourself, and trust in the product." Newton's third law of motion states that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. The zeal to close a deal often results in the opposite, despite the best of intentions. Lao Tzu said, quote, "Fame or the self, which matters more? The self or wealth, which is more precious? gain or loss? Which is more painful? End quote. Contemplate your desire for fame, wealth, and personal gain. Ask yourself, do these expectations hinder your selling success? In some situations, this may be the truth. If you believe in what you're selling, give the buyer space to make up their own mind. Have a little faith that it will all work out. Now, to download a copy of this week's chapter of the Tao of Sales Babble, you can find it in the show notes at www.salesbabble.com. And while you're there, you can sign up for our brief weekly newsletter with links to the podcast conveniently sent to your inbox. I promise I won't spam you. Next, if you could do me a favor and share this episode with a friend who's interested in growing their selling skills, please do. On whatever app that you're using, subscribe to Sales Babble and share this episode with your friend, because word of mouth is the premier way of growing listeners. Now, if you have any questions about sales, don't hesitate to reach out. Find me on LinkedIn or click the Babble Me link on the website. With that said, that's all I've got for this week. Until next Tuesday, take care and have a highly successful and a profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.